Good morning and welcome to today's session to learn how ABP is enhancing customer experience through Tata Communication ISO Managed Cloud for AWS. Today's session is part of Together We Innovate, an online event to help you understand and how AWS partners like Tata Communications are supporting customers' cloud computing journey. Before we start the session, let me share some housekeeping rules. First, you should see a GoToWebinar control panel to the right of your screen. From this panel, you will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane. We will collect these questions and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's session. If we are not able to get to your questions, we will plan on responding to each of you personally through email. Second, you will also receive a set of survey questions at the end of today's session. Please take the time to provide your feedback so that AWS and Tata Communication can continue to improve and understand what you require to become successful in your business. This is also a platform to highlight if you require any further assistance from AWS and Tata Communication after this session. Finally, this session is being recorded and we will share a copy of the recording by the end of the next week. Without further ado, I hand over to Rajesh and Sumesh sir to take it further. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Lalit, and thank you, Subhamay, for being part of this session. First of all the attendees, thank you for joining in this webinar. The intent of this webinar is to share how AWS and Tata Communication are working with their customers, where they're helping the customers in their digital journey. And in specific, we are today going to talk with Subhamay Chakrabarty, who's the CIO for ABP Pvt Limited. He's been spearheading the digital journey for the organization, and particularly on the enhancement of customer experience, which is what they've enabled with some of the workloads are running on the ISO managed cloud for AWS. We are going to talk about what they have done, but before we get into a presentation, I thought I'll Subhamay start with you and ask you certain questions. We've seen that transformation today is evident across industries, and particularly in media industry we've seen. Please take us through the idea behind launching some of the new products that you have launched, like Admission Tree, which is for the school admission related portal, as well as Ananda publisher e-commerce portal that you have recently launched. Subhamay would be happy to hear from you how and what started and what are some of the things that you're doing in that particular space.
Sure. Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks for inviting me in this session. I'm honored and privileged to be part of this. So coming to your question, yes, media has been an interesting space, and we are trying to innovate and doing something beyond the general definition of media as such. So there's two examples that we are going to talk about are something related to that. First one is Admission Tree. Now, ABP as a group has majorly two publications. One is a vernacular language daily, Anand Bazar Patrika, and there is an English national daily, which is the Telegraph. So the Telegraph has a long association with schools. We have a couple of publications, in fact, which are targeted for the school kids and teenagers. So that's why, I mean, we are in this space for some time. Now, being in this space, we also came to know that there are certain challenges, if we say challenges, I mean, in the school admission process. So if you look at the school admission process as such, I mean, it's a bit cumbersome. So parents first start with the discovery journey, where they want to find the right school based on certain criteria, based on the boards, based on the proximity and other criteria. And once that is done, that's the first part. Then they have to go to the school, queue up, get the forms, then possibly fill up the forms, come back, submit the fees, etc. So this is the whole gamut of the school admission process. So here what we are trying to do is we try to launch an online portal which should solve all of these problems put together. So what Admission Tree is, it's a one-stop shop, as we say, for the school admission process, where parents can go and search for the schools based on certain criteria. Most, I mean, if you talk about Calcutta and West Bengal, most of the schools are now enlisted there, and major schools are now having admissions only through admission tree.in as of now. So that way we have made a huge progress, and in fact pandemic has made it even bigger, because during pandemic people could not come out of their homes. So I mean, they were restricted at their own space. That way admission tree was right in space, right in time. We launched it 2 years back, and we have seen tremendous growth during the pandemic. So that's the story about admission tree. I will now talk about the other one, which is Ananda Publishers e-commerce portal. So Ananda Publishers is one of our group company which is there since 1957, which is, I mean, almost 64 years in existence. So it's the most premium publishing brand in Bengal, in Bengali books. And also, I mean, it's not only literature, I mean, a lot of books are getting published almost every year. But interestingly, the mode was only physical so far. So obviously, as we were innovating and we are getting into the digital journey, we decided that we should get into an e-commerce platform. So we started that a year back, and then we said that it's not only e-commerce platform, it should be physical as well as ebook platform. So now it has turned into a ebook platform where people can buy and read on the app itself. It has a ebook reader as good as a Kindle, we must say, and obviously the shipment and other things are happening from the platform. So as you can see, Ananda Bajar, I mean, ABP Group is now in its 100th year. So it's there in existence. I mean, it has seen a century. So doing innovation even in that company is interesting, and it's coming out very nicely. I mean, both these examples are not directly into the news media, but it is around the periphery, and it's doing pretty good. I mean, both from the technology side as well as the business side.
Good to hear. And specifically, when you stated ABP has completed 100 years now, I can very well correlate, because Tata Group also completed 150 years 2 years back. And for an old organization like ours, making this innovation and transition when the platforms are changing is very important for us to sustain and grow. So in this, when you were looking at enabling some of these platforms which you were talking about, what or why you thought of using cloud infrastructure and not deploying these within your in-house IT infrastructure? Because I remember when I was an engineer, I used to support ABP for one of their publications, and there everything was in-house. So what made you think about cloud infrastructure as the platform of choice for launching these services?
So as I said, I mean, there is a pull as well as push factor. So the push factor is, I mean, the IT infra which is there on-prem is obviously getting aged, and there is a limitation in terms of expanding it further. There is a cost factor also involved. But I will not talk much about the push factor, rather I will talk about the pull factor, which is the agility of cloud. I mean, when we talked about these platforms, we needed obviously certain servers, certain sizing, but we are not sure what sizing should be done, because say for admission tree we started with a couple of schools. Now it has covered almost entire West Bengal. There is a certain volume that is coming with it. Similarly for Ananda Publishers, when we launched, it was a simple application, and then we said we will also add up ebook, etc. Now it has scaled up. So planning for the scale for on-prem infrastructure is obviously a challenge. And when we need something very fast, I mean, depending on getting server getting shipped, storage getting shipped, that's quite time consuming. So that way, these two were the factors for us.
So as I get, basically what you're saying is, one reason was obviously the scalability and the agility that you would need for these businesses. And second, how this business would shape up is something which was not known in the beginning. And you wanted to make sure that your cash flows are aligned with the growth that you would have. And that's how you kind of looked at the cloud adoption. So if I may dwell a little deeper, what were some of the apprehensions you had when you were thinking of migrating to cloud? I know it has become a standard thing now within most of the CIO circles, where you talk about cloud first or internet first or security embedded with that. What were some of the apprehensions that ABP had when they were moving these workloads onto the cloud environment?
Right. See, security, as you rightly mentioned, was the first in the block. That for a 100-year-old organization, if something has not been done in cloud, doing something on cloud obviously comes with the question marks in the mind, that why are we putting the customer data outside the premises? So answering that question was important, that we are securing the data. That's first part, and data privacy comes with that. Second part was the resource availability. Whether we have the right resources when we are getting into AWS was a question in our mind. We had some resources who has been working in AWS for a while, but see, AWS as such innovates almost every day. I mean, there is a service or the other coming almost every month. So keeping in touch and keeping in track with the latest and greatest is a challenge itself. So that was the other thought in our mind. Management of technology, which comes together with this. Who is going to manage it? Whether there is going to be any outage, since we are going out for non-domain, that was another concern. And cost, because servers comes with a fixed cost. You know, this is the capex, and then you start doing the AMC. That's the pattern. So you can put it on an Excel and present it to the CFO. But for the cloud, obviously it depends on the sizing. So it may start small, then it can suddenly blow up. I mean, there are all these concerns. So these were the concerns, I would say: security, resource availability, and skills, and cost.
Okay, I think rightly put, because those are something which we hear from most of the enterprise customers also, that security, data security becomes the foremost thing. But also making sure that whatever you are taking, you're managing it well, both from the availability performance perspective, but also from a cost management perspective. That becomes very important, is what we hear. But when ABP was looking at evaluating various cloud choices, there are multiple technology partners or the services companies, CSPs, who are available. What made you look at AWS as your partner of choice? And was there any assessment procedure that you had created for shortlisting on the platform of choice for you?
Right. So two parts to it. First part was the decision whether we should go for private cloud or public cloud, and we decided for public cloud because of the speed of the innovation which happens in the public cloud space. Private cloud is what we thought is a good substitution when we move from on-prem to outside. That can be a good way. But for a public-facing app, for a B2C app, possibly public cloud should have been a better choice. So that was part one. Part two was within public cloud. Obviously, I mean, AWS has its own competitors. Everybody knows that. So which one to choose? We had done some assessment, and AWS came out as the default choice somehow between the tech community, between the development team and the IT team. The reason were twofold. One part is the familiarity with the platform. I mean, AWS is there in business for a long time, so that way they have the advantage of making people aware of the latest and greatest. Obviously, others are now catching up. I would say they are far behind, but being in the game for a longer time helped. And we also knew what is there and how to calculate what is the size and etc. And other is the speed of innovation, as I was mentioning in the other question, that AWS comes out with services very frequently, which may not be there in the other providers. I mean, I'm not saying they're far behind again, but the speed with which AWS operates, that's amazing. And that gives us a confidence also that if we want to innovate something beyond the usual stuff, then possibly AWS might help us. So that was a kind of decision matrix for us at that point of time.
Okay. Shubham, I can go on and on, but maybe looking at the time, one last question which I would have is, when you started off this journey, I'm sure you would have thought about some of the benefits that you would get, both from the total cost of ownership perspective, but more from the business innovation perspective. So if you can tell us a little bit about some of the benefits that you have seen from the time you have migrated to AWS, cloud environment, which is presently managed by Tata Communications, what were some of those benefits that you saw when you migrated to cloud?
Sure. I think I covered to some extent. One part was the speed and agility. We didn't know what the size is going to be, so we started with a small EC instance, and then it came up big. The elastic cloud, where it was defined later. Initially, we thought that we know what is the size, then obviously it started changing. Cost, I will not get into much because cost is a factor of the size that or the customer need that is going to happen. So let's not get into that part. Tata is helping us in the sense that I think I mentioned as a challenge was about the resource availability, the skill set that is going to be there inside. That was a question in our mind. That is the space where Tata could pitch in, and they did that. They helped us in terms of getting us refreshed with the latest stuff. It's a consolidated support, so that we know we are in trusted hand. In terms of cloud, we are into an unknown territory, but we have a known partner who can help us swim that out. So
yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. When you are transitioning from a certain technology base to another technology base, or the way technology is getting consumed, it becomes important that you have the right partners, both from the technology platform perspective, as well as people who are going to support you in that journey and during the life cycle. That becomes important. Thank you, Subhamoy, for giving your insights on how ABP has benefited from cloud adoption on AWS, managed through Tata Communication. I have a couple of slides based on whatever we've done and what we've seen our customers doing specifically on ABP side. I know you spoke about this, but for everyone's benefit, we started off this journey for ABP when they wanted to develop a hyperlocal newspaper, which was ABP SA, which was looking after the particular district clusters, and objective was to empower and engage readers with the audio visuals which would come in. That's where they started off. We also saw the host of applications which were deployed on this, which included the web portal, and they were looking for a reliable, secure, and scalable platform, as Subhamoy was talking about. The solution which was initially started off was on the cloud environment, public cloud environment, which is AWS, where they started using the Elastic Compute Services, Elastic Block Services, as well as the Lambda function as part of that. Those were certain things, and legacy applications were migrated. But what we've seen during the life, as Shubhamay was talking about, now we have admissiontree.com. We also have Ananda Publisher e-commerce portal coming in. So ABP has utilized the benefits of the cloud, and they've utilized the services which I was talking about from the relational database perspective, because one of the things which was done initially was more of a rehosting, but over a period of time, re-platforming and re-architecting has been done. That's where ABP did away with their relational databases, but started taking RDS services on AWS, and have been using S3 for the long-term retention and caching, as well as streaming the media which was deployed on this. And I already spoke about AWS Lambda being used for the automation. Some of the benefits which we've jointly seen, they've seen that the latency is minimal, which was one of the requirements when you are getting into specific workloads. You don't want the customer experience to go wrong, and that's where minimal latency was very important, which led to the enhanced customer experience. But also making sure that the applications which are deployed on these are available whenever customers are looking for. Although the benefits are written 99%, but we've seen more than 99% achievement also from availability perspective, and it is meeting the scalability requirement, whatever the customers were looking for. So how we enabled that for our customers, if you can move on to the next slide, please. What we are saying is that we, as Tata Communication, we became a partner of choice for Subhamoy in their digital journey. as a advanced consulting partner for AWS. What they got as part of that is basically they got AWS certified solution architects who could work as a consultant in designing the solution on AWS, as well as looking at AWS certified professionals, both for the service implementation part as well as during the life cycle from an assurance perspective also, thus assuring that whatever is deployed on that environment is running as per the requirement, both from performance as well as availability perspective. And all this was enabled in an experience where the handling of customers on AWS platform was done by Tata Communication, and we also made sure that we become a single point of contact for ABP, both from the management perspective as well as from the AWS billing perspective. So that's what we assured as part of that journey, being a advanced consulting partner. How this was done, I think we did touch upon how ABP looked at assessment of their workload on the in-house data center. Obviously, there was a cost analysis which was done. There was a planning which was done how the migration should be done, in which move groups they should be moved on. The methodology which was used was basically creating move groups and moving those using some of the tools which are natively available on the AWS cloud environment, and thus enable the migration. But not only that, also make sure that once it is functional, we create all the matrices related to monitoring, and then do a cutover before it is validated, tested, and delivered for production environment. So this was the entire journey that was done with ABP when we migrated their workload from in-house to the cloud environment. So if we move on to the next slide, when we say this, what also became important was that when you are looking at the overall implementation, you have taken into account what needs to be migrated, what is the scope, what kind of monitoring tools need to be there, although all the platform that you have on AWS gives the monitoring as the basic capability on that. But making sure that getting integrated with the service desk operations so that SLAs can be measured is important, and that is something which was taken care of, and the automation related to that were done for 24 cross monitoring, and also making sure that in case any security or compliance policies need to be deployed on that, those are templatized, so that any new workloads when they come in, they are deployed as per the ABP best practices, both including the OS patches, etc., or even the backup policy that had to be defined. And that is something which was delivered through the cloud portal for managing this particular environment for ABP. So that's what was done, basically getting best out of the AWS cloud environment. That is something which was enabled as part of the journey that we did with ABP. If you can move on to the next slide. So what we did in that basically is where we helped in creating a migration strategy, which included what should be the data strategy, which includes basically classification of data, what is structured data, what is unstructured data, and then creating environments, be it for the batch jobs or be it for the online jobs which were being done on that, or also creating a data lake or a warehouse depending on what was the requirement. And when this was being done, we made sure that the security is embedded as part of that engagement and deployment. And as I told you, that as being a partner, we also made sure, and I'm sure this is going to become more and more important as PDP bill becomes a law in India, where data privacy and localization is going to become very important. So how do you make sure that the compliance is adhered to on any new workload which is deployed on this? Because one of the reasons why this is important is a lot of time the business groups within the organization, and I'm sure this would be case with ABP also, where they would have deployed some of their applications or a new project straight away on cloud environment. But when it comes for day-to-day operations back to Subhamoy, one of the things which he has to see is whether it is meeting the policy definitions which is there, which includes the security policy or the industry policy that has to be there, whether it complies to that or not. And all this also making sure that the network strategy is optimized so that whenever a customer is coming, their experience is as good as what they were doing when they were in-house. And all this involved making sure that you have a partner who's not only a managed services or a service delivery partner, but also helping as a procurement partner for of that particular environment. So it was a complete outsourcing. That is something which we enable with our customers. So if you move on to the next slide, what we do for ABP is basically a cloud management which is simplified, which is providing the transparency and control for the AWS environment. This is done through ISO Cloud Command, which is nothing but a portal for cloud management for real-time view of IT infrastructure, both from availability and performance perspective. But not only that, it is also having an integrated service desk operations also, because we manage it for ABP. So we need to make sure that there is a single sign on capability which is integrated. There is a role-based access which is given. That means who's making what change. So an audit trail for whatever changes were done on that particular environment, those are enabled. And also making sure that there was an ability to create customized dashboards. And this is something which is done as part of the ISO Cloud Command through various areas, which we call as OSCAR, which is operations, obviously, which is 24/7 monitoring. Second is on the security space. How do you make sure that whatever security policies have been defined or templatized, whether those are getting deployed even on the newer workloads, or in case there is a thing which is not as per the compliance, how do you mitigate that risk? Giving the right alerts on that is very important, and that is something which comes as a part of that. Shubhamai did speak about that this is a transition where you move from a CapEx-based buying to an OpEx-based buying. So you also need to have a proper cost view, that what is the view that you will have in due course of time. So based on the historical utilization, the portal also gives a recommendation that what would be your cost for next month or next quarter, basically. That enables you to have a right discussion with your CFO before it comes as a bill shock at a later stage. So that is something which is done as part of the cost. And obviously, when you're managing a large footprint, having a right CMDB where you would have all the assets tagged to your various groups which are there becomes very important. And all this with some of the recommendations which are based on the best practices are delivered as part of the ISO Cloud Command that we deliver for our customers. So in moving on, basically, next slide, if you can go. What we are saying here is that Tata Communication becomes your one-stop shop partner for a hybrid or a multi-cloud journey, which could include AWS environment or any other environment that you may want to deploy, with visibility and control, and also making sure that in case you are using some of the new age technologies like containers or like Lambda, how do you make sure that your app modernization is enabled with the DevOps kind of management is something which is enabled. And all this comes with the best IT management capabilities apart from the technology certifications, which are important, which is on CMM level 3 or ISMS or SMS certification. But foremost, which I'll talk about, is the PII, which is where you talk about personal identifiable information, because you may have your end customers' personal information being available on your applications. So whosoever is managing that environment, do they have people and processes which are adhering to PII certification, which is ISO 27017 and 18, because AWS as a platform has that. But whosoever is managing that, do they also have processes to make sure that they are complying to the industry regulation or the regulation related to a specific technology platform? So those are some of the things which are enabled by Tata Communication when we deliver this, and this is something which we did for ABP also as part of the deployment and management that we are doing. So moving on, what we are talking about is that we as Tata Communication, a partner for our enterprise customers like ABP, and with our technology partnerships like AWS, are helping our customers in their journey for digital transformation. We believe that we can become a very good partner in that journey for our customers, and that's something which we thought today we will share with all of you. With that, I'm going to end my presentation and thank once again Subhamoy for giving insights on how ABP is leveraging AWS cloud enabled by Tata Communication. So with that, we are open for Q&A if there are any questions. Lalit, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Raj, sir. This is really quite insightful session, and now we'll just we'll try to address few of the questions. And the first one is for Rajesh sir, for you. So there's a question around, tell us the methodology of assess, migrate, and manage through which you can help business to streamline their cloud journey.
So I think I did cover about that, but the approach that we take is for any large enterprise customer or a mid-market customer, the first thing that we do for our customers is the assessment, which is where we look at the digital estate of the customer within their own premises or on the other cloud or on private cloud, which they might have to deploy. And this is done with both tools and people and processes enabled with that. So we deploy agentless tools, which will look at what is the dependency between the various applications and the underlying infrastructure, as well as helping us create the move groups. If there are interdependencies between various applications, it helps you to create those move groups. And that move group assessment, as well as the underlying dependencies, help you create a better migration plan. That augmented by our project managers, basically who have been trained on AWS platform, we work out a detailed migration plan for our customers, which is then agreed upon both the partners, because there is a cutover time that you have to take. The intent is to make it a seamless cutover for our customers, and basis that those migrations are taken care of, which includes even getting into doing the drills, doing the validation of whatever has been deployed, and then make sure that you monitor and manage it. And in initial phase, when the migration happens, we get into something what we call as hyper care period, because when the migration happens, and that is true for any migration, it's not only for cloud, there may be certain hiccups which may come in for the users. So how do you enable those is something which is taken care of during the hypercare support period. And then it is managed through an automated portal like ISO Cloud Command Portal, which is what we extend to our customers, as well as we make sure that this is the same platform which is being used by our internal management teams, thus assuring customer transparency, that they get to know what is happening on their environment. So that's something which we deliver for our customers. Back to you, Lalit.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I'll come to the second question, which is for Mr. Subhamoy, sir. So what does the future of ABP look like now that you have migrated to AWS Cloud? And what are the advantages you're seeing of working with a strategic partner like Tata Communication?
Right. See, right now, as Rajesh mentioned in one of the answers, that like other years also, we are adopting cloud first approach, which is for the mobile and web applications. For the core applications, it will remain at on-premise DC, but for all the innovations and for all the application of difference, that will be on cloud. That's the policy right now. So on the Tata advantages, I think I covered in the other answer also. Tata has given us the benefit of the resources. So we didn't have the proper knowledge when we started with the AWS journey. So we wanted to have a partner who we can trust with, because this is an unknown territory for us, and that has worked out well. So far Tata has been able to help us in going through this journey. I'm sure Tata will be able to continue to support us in the days to come.
Sure, definitely. Thank you, sir. So we have a few more questions, but I think we'll take these questions maybe offline. But before we end this session, just want to say a big thank you to Rajesh sir and Subhash sir for being so generous with your time and spending time with us. Likewise, we want to thank the audience for spending time with us. A gentle reminder to fill up our post-session survey so that you can continue to deliver information that are useful for your cloud computing journey. And in case we could not respond to your questions, we will reach out to you by email. So thank you everyone.
Thank you, and be safe, all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.